What's up, Starcraft fans? This video is brought to you by Endarthe, who is supporting me on Patreon. Pulse Cannon tier supporters or higher are guaranteed one video redemption per month. This month, he requested Zagara Wiki review, so you know how these go. I'll go to the Wikia on Zagara for co-op commanders, and then I'll invite a guest. This time, it's Eviling in the call, but we will go through them, and in the interest of time, for our sakes, both of us, I'll just kind of flash the section on the screen, as you can see there in the slides. Yeah, in the slides there. And then we'll go straight into the review. We won't read them out loud because you could just pause the video and then read for yourself. Without further ado, Eviling, how are you today?
Just waking up.
Just waking up? What a coincidence. I'm just about ready to go to bed. It's been a long day. Anyway, so let's actually start right away. So this is the intro, Zagara. So what do you think about it?
Pretty straightforward, just like the commander itself. She's not as powerful as Kerrigan. Yeah, depending upon what prestige you're talking about, but her ability to use Intensified Frenzy really can boost your ally to a very frightening degree, which Kerrigan can't do.
Frightening degree. That is actually correct. Yeah. So my thought here, I think it's pretty accurate. I mean, it's the intro, so not really much to talk about there. Let's continue. Okay, so we have the unit here and miscellaneous. What do you think about these?
Again, very straightforward commander, so this hits the strengths and weaknesses pretty spot on.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. The only thing I would kind of take away points from is infinitely spawning Banelings. That's only true if you're not the second prestige. She does have high burst strength, she does have rapid expansion and easy to remake the army. And she does have weakness in prolonged engagements and sustained damage. Most effectives are suicide. That's absolutely correct. Let's move on.
So, recommended for experienced players. I mean, this is a sore point that happens to a lot of commanders, kind of like Raynor is meant for everyone. Experienced players, Zagara is like one of the most friendly commanders available. Abathur would be for experienced players, so I disagree with that. But I'm sure this is just coming from what they say on the client itself.
That's true. This text is taken directly from the Starcraft 2 in-game text, and this probably does not reflect the opinion of the guy who wrote this. So the mistake here is caused by Blizzard itself, nothing to do with the Wikia interpretation. So there's nothing really much to say about this one. Let's move on. There we go. Right?
Yeah, pretty straightforward in terms of what each of the prestige is about. I mean, it's pretty much what the game client will tell you. So you can't really dispute any of this.
Yes, it's literally just facts, so which is good. Sometimes you just gotta get down to the facts and really just say things that are uncontroversial to kind of set the stage for what you're about to say next. Okay, next slide. What do you think?
Deceptively fragile hero unit. I wouldn't say super fragile, but yes, you definitely have to take a little more care about her than Kerrigan, except for when you start concerning your prestige, where she kind of has a get out of jail free card if you didn't expend the deep tunnel.
That's true, as long as you have a cooldown available.
But otherwise, yeah, pretty straightforward on her general usage. I guess the only thing I could add is like the other commander heroes, you can kind of think them as like combat units. Zagara is more of a spellcasting unit.
That's actually true. I would argue even more of a summoner than a spellcaster per se. She just summons Banelings. summons hunter killers, summons roaches, and summons the rest of her army. Herself, she just kind of, you know, is a slightly weaker Hydralisk, kind of. But anyway,
Yeah.
the weakness here is also, I think, spot on. Enemy numbers can't overwhelm her hunter killers if there's too many or too strong of them. If, for example, if there's a 10 Avenger stack battlecruiser, not sure the hunter killers can dispatch of that. Anyway, let's move on. Next slide. All right.
This one, the strategies, I kind of feel is a little sort of, but not really. So it says Zagara struggles against hybrid dominators and hybrid behemoths, which both possess powerful AoE abilities and clean attacks, all of which eviscerate her forces in seconds. Yeah, if you just let them sit in the storm for a while, but yeah, mass banelings and yeah, they kind of just wipe dominators and behemoths out. I don't see that as a legitimate threat unless it's like a specific mutator.
I think it's as much of a threat as stuff like Infestors, High Templar, Corsairs. Corsairs, one thing that I would have liked to have mentioned here. Corsair Shred Scourge. That's probably her most feared unit, right? And I think the Viper. The Viper and the Corsair are probably her two worst enemies. Maybe Reavers.
Yeah,
Yeah?
I fear those more than the dominators and hybrids as Zagara.
You just kind of have to know
Like,
where the big guys are, the hybrid dominators and behemoths, and just kind of snipe them with either hunter killers or a bailing barrage or two before sending the rest of you guys in, if you want to do that. It's kind of the same as how you would deal with siege tanks as Rainer. You're just gonna take it out first before sending the rest of your army in. But yeah, that's actually very insightful of you. Let's move on.
I think this hits on it pretty well. Her regen, as we mentioned before, Zagara is a spellcaster hero or a summoner hero, and if you can keep on slinging out the abilities, that will keep her damage going. Her attack damage is nothing to write home about, even with the Medusa blades. It's good to have maybe a few points in it, but you should try to find some sort of balance point where, okay, I've pumped enough points into the Queen and Zag energy regeneration that I don't have to worry about them running out of energy, even if I'm spamming it almost continuously. And then a few points in her attack damage helps out with just kind of optimizing the damage output.
I never put any points in the Zagara attack damage. For me, it's always about Queen regen, even if I'm going for the third prestige, because you never know when you can't outspend your energy regeneration, especially when you're in a tight spot. I think that, yeah, even if it doesn't do anything, even if the attacks ramp up by a lot, it's ultimately not that big of a deal. I mean, even with the Medusa blades, sometimes I even wonder if it's even worth getting the Medusa blades upgrade for Zagara, because she's really not an attacking unit. Just think about it. By spending 150 gas or something like that, you go from 1 pea shooter to 3 pea shooters, which is triple the pea shooters, but ultimately still a pea shooter. But what do you think of this? Does it significantly affect her effectiveness overall by getting the 150 gas upgrade?
I think that's worth a video for you in the future, testing to see what her damage output would be.
Yeah,
with or without.
With or without the Medusa blades, and then compare that to 3 or 150 gas worth of Banelings. What is more worthwhile? That's probably a very good idea. Yeah, thank you for giving me that. Anyway, let's move on.
So definitely good points mentioned on this. Zergling Evasion always applies. Intensified Frenzy is a very limited time. It's very potent when it's active.
Yes.
But having a few points in Zergling Evasion is recommended, even if it's a low chance. It does help them to make the Zerglings last a little bit longer, especially when you want them to tie up something. Due to their high spawn rate, you you can get them out in emergencies and help them have them delay an attack wave or harass wave, and then with the evasion, it just helps prolong that. Whereas where you can bring your other forces to bear, your banelings, scourges, aberrations, corruptors, etc.
Yeah. Do you ever use intensified frenzy when you have the third prestige, the teleporting one?
The teleport and the deep tunnel one.
Yeah, the tunneling one.
I do.
Is it
I
that
do.
impactful?
The intensified, to me, it's pretty impactful. I do. So, kind of a hot take, but the jumping ahead to power set 3 with the roach drop, I actually
Let's actually
invest
go there
points
now.
into the roach drop.
Yeah, let's go there now. Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think?
So power set 3, I mean, it does it. I do it for prestige number 3. Put in points into the roach drop because it allows it to have it more often, and then when you do have it more often, you can use the roach drop, have them tanking, and then break out the hunter killers, and then intensified frenzy for a very significant spike in damage from all of that. That's sling out. Don't underestimate how much hunter killers can do, especially with intensified frenzy. So,
That's
uh,
interesting.
and the other aspect is they are your army that travels with you on the deep tunnel. So if you need to go to a remote location, you really need to output DPS significantly there.
That's
You can
true.
get your hunter killers up, whereas the rest of your stuff, you're gonna have to logistically figure it out. If it's a very remote location, your Zerglings, Banelings, Scourges, etc., can't get there exactly. So yeah,
Bio launchers.
not even bio launchers.
I think I actually don't ever point. I actually don't ever put any points at a certain point. I just stopped putting points in Roach Drop Mastery. That's just me, because I feel like, yeah, you get a little bit more tanking, but ultimately, it's a couple seconds of tanking at best, and ultimately you'll still want to be dealing damage to your primary army. I think it's more utility overall to just go for better banelings so that Zagara has a more consistent pushing power, since her banelings, especially when you're in the third prestige, regenerate so quickly. But I see your point. It's valid. When you need to kind of go on a secret mission to snipe an
Mhm.
objective or two, I can see that being a thing. But for me personally, I just
Yep.
prefer the more stable, more solid general pushing ability, even if it means going through front door most of the time. But yeah, I
Mhm.
see your point. Let's move on. Prestige strategies.
So there's again very straightforward commander, and this is the most straightforward prestige. Nothing much to get wrong other than
Bad
just
macro.
bad macro, bad mastery point allocations. We
Kind of,
have
yeah.
seen many people on queue that invest put all their points into Zagara attack damage when Zagara attack speed, and when Zagara is not
This guard's not even
available.
there.
So
It's literally pointless. So when you go for this prestige, there's only one mastery set. You only go for the Queen energy regen because there's no Zagara. You only go for the Zergling evasion again because there's no frenzy because there's no Zagara, and you only go for the bailing attack damage because there's no roaches, or there are no roaches. So pretty straightforward. This entire prestige is pretty straightforward. Let's move on. Second prestige,
Mhm.
Mother of Constructs.
so somewhat straightforward, but I mean, I play P2 almost. That's my main prestige, and I would say Aberration and Corruptors are not powerful enough to form an army of their own. They they're usually the bulk of my P2 army, and I make when I run out of gas, that's when I make Zerglings and make sure they have their upgrade with the shredding claws, so that way that they're just accentuating the damage from the aberrations. And it's uh if you have like maybe 5 aberrations and you pop mass frenzy, they would do some significant work,
Significant
especially
work.
when you got the shredding talents of the Zerglings, and you got you're spamming out the corruption from the corruptors. They will bring things down real quick.
Yeah. Zergers become very talented, and corruptors are very good at corrupting. I think I've seen a run by Ankalagan on Rifts to Core Hall where he just masked corruptors and he just flew them in and just right click the shards. They can kind of tank for a little bit. And he actually finished the whole mission just with them. How crazy is that?
Yeah, that's
That's
not surprising. I mean, they can do
he
a
did
significant amount of
push
damage.
in.
You a lot of corruptors in, and then did he pop? I'm guessing once he got there, got to the shards, he popped intensified frenzy and just let the corruptors go to town on it,
I
right?
think so. I don't remember vividly, but I quite
Yeah,
remember the main gist of it, which is no other units pushing in the base, just the flying corruptors, and just right click
yeah.
the shards, and then he won. And I was like, wait, game's over? He's insane.
And then, and once the corruptors dies, 2 scourges come out too.
Yeah,
So
even
they're
more right
just
clicking fun.
exactly.
All right,
It's definitely doable. The only thing is, against shards and stuff like that, you can't corrupt it. It has to be a unit.
all right. Let's move on. Apex Predator.
So this one, I find it kind of touches upon, I guess, different philosophies on how people handle P3 Zagara. I do feel that there is a balance point of how much energy regen is enough. For me, that's roughly sitting about 18 to 19 points in the energy regen, and then I put the rest into Zagara attack speed.
That's interesting. As I mentioned earlier, I never put anything in their attack speed because, like, yay, pea
Mhm.
shooters. And they do load
Yeah, but
it. Yeah, go ahead.
P shooters, when it's just her and your hunter killers. I mean, the hunter killers are doing majority of the work, but I mean,
Wait,
damage is damage still.
do hunter killers get affected by Zagara attack damage? They don't, right?
No, no, no. I'm saying, when you go out into a remote area, I mean, if you're popping Zagara behind enemy lines, and it's Zagara, hunter killers, and roach drop. So you're gonna need, if you can have any extra damage from Zagara itself adding to the hunter killers, that would be great. And then once the intensified frenzy goes off, then it's hopefully you take down what you needed to take down.
Honestly, Zagara just needs a better power set one alternative. Zagara attack damage just sucks. She needs something better. Maybe splash radius. That'll kind of tip it more favorably.
Mm.
Splash radius, or unit cost, or army unit respawn rate. That'll be quite intriguing. Army unit respawn rate versus energy regen. Now that'll be an interesting discussion. Interesting choice to make for Zagara. Attack damage, I don't know. It doesn't move the scales a lot for me. What do you think?
Yeah, it's something. It's what we have to work with. I'm fine with it. There's a lot of people that really do well with P3 Zagara. I mean, the
There are a lot
person
of
that
people.
sticks out in my mind is Neo Metal for the post cannon tier.
Yes.
I mean, he pretty much mains Zag P3.
Yeah, he kind of does. He plays really well using Zagara. The third prestige in particular, he just teleports deep tunnels to places and then brings down objectives sometimes without even me noticing. He's pretty good at that. Anything else for third prestige?
It's definitely the more unique of the prestiges. It's not as straightforward as her other prestiges, and so that's why a lot of players that I guess we joke that Zagara is like half a
Half
brutalist
a
in
brutalist,
some
yeah.
ways. Yeah, she kind of acts like that,
She
so
kind of
that's why
is.
a lot of players, experienced players, like to gravitate toward P3.
Yeah, kind of. All right, let's move on. So next we have They're Everywhere.
So this mentions that with the near instant spawn of Zerglings, you're able to raise up an army real quick as long as you have the minerals to do it, or minerals and resources to make it happen. And also another major thing is larvae. So you're gonna need to have your macro hatcheries or be on point with your queen injects. It's usually better just to make macro hatcheries. Think about it. The hatchery itself provides a larva, provides supply, provides creep. Whereas if you have a queen, they can run out of energy and yeah, they can spread creep, but it takes a lot more micro. So um, you sh- your APM is also a resource you need to keep in mind. So if you can lighten that load, that'd be good. Something I feel that this is missing is like you can raise an army real quick, and it mentions being supply capped at 100. But something else to note about Zagara, she can build a lot of defensive structures, and that don't cost any supply. So
Bile launchers!
exactly, if you have the gas, make bio launchers. They are your, think of it like a siege unit. You can, if you have an overlord with the ventral sacks, hop in a queen, move,
I
bring the
think
overlord to where you need it,
I think to be
move it
fair,
where it needs.
to this section of the wiki, yeah, I think it only speaks to Zagara's swarming style. I think there's a section later on that talks about her static defense. This section only
Okay.
speaks specifically about her swarming style, which I think is just about right. I think it's pretty
Yeah.
much spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, let's move on.
Yeah.
Come to Mama.
So this is kind of saying again, Zara is a summoner, spellcaster. She is there to buff your army or buff the army. I guess the only exception would be kind of like P3, where she kind of is the army in some sense. But
No, she's not.
they're not wrong saying she is fragile. If you lose her, you lose a lot of your damage output,
That's true.
especially if you're playing P2 or P0.
That's true.
So try not to lose her. But the same thing also holds true to Kerrigan. Not so much the Haka. You can lose the Haka and you just feed more drones and get him back out. Whereas Kerrigan and Zagara, you have to wait their timers. So don't lose her. Make when you have the resources, have at least two queens around. That way, if Zagara's really beaten up, you can bring her back
Transfuse.
and then just transfuse into her. And if those queens really aren't doing anything, at least they're kind of watching the hatcheries and
Injecting.
will serve as a target. Yeah, they can inject, they can spread creep, which is actually, it is useful for Zag's army. Not superly impactful, but if you have the APM for it, you should try to get it done. Uh, her the second paragraph focuses on her abilities of combining with intensified frenzy, and that is a huge thing that kind of E1 is missing. It having intensified frenzy affect you and your ally is a huge boost that
If you're
a
that
lot of,
prestige. Or not prestige, I guess.
yeah, yeah, but it requires you P0 or P2, but it
Yeah.
is a huge boost.
Yeah.
Oh.
I guess that's fair. That's fair. Alright, let's move on.
Mhm.
Try not to let them splash you.
So the first sentence kind of irks me. Zagara has terrible ground-based anti-air capabilities. She relies on hunter killers. That is true, but I wouldn't call hunter killers bad. They're pretty damn effective for what they are. and another ground-based anti-air capability. Spore crawlers are good. IO launchers are really good against anti-air if you can funnel it down to where they're hitting.
I guess
So,
this wiki means when
eh,
pushing offensively, not just when you're waiting for
yeah,
the attack wave. So I can see where it's coming from.
yeah. Otherwise, yeah, using Baning and Scourges to wipe out majority of your enemy defenders. I would one thing I find kind of missing is make use of the um use your Baning and Scourges to open up the path. Then after that, while let's say you're maxed out on supply, you go
Yeah.
in, a lot of that supply is going to get freed up. Make your Zerglings follow up with it. Try to stay maxed out, even during as you're assaulting the front of a base. You want to send the Zerglings in to mop up everything that's still around.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. All right. I think this section generally talks about not letting the enemies use their splash damage on you. I think this is I think this is kind of what it's talking about, but it could be wrong. Anyway, let's move on.
It doesn't really hint about it, but yeah, I mean, your units are all suicide units, so as long as you can get them in quick enough, um, yeah.
All right,
Okay,
let's
sorry.
move on. Fury of the Swarm.
So my take on this is just mainly using all the tools that Zagara has available. She doesn't have a real complex kit,
It's quite
and
simple.
it's just yeah,
Recommended for all
just
players.
but yes, just try to utilize everything to the best of your advantage. Like such as corruptors. A lot of people don't know that the corruptor has an ability called corruption, which really uh, amplifies the damage that you or your ally can do to a unit, and especially if it's a chunky unit.
The
Um,
aberrations,
like,
aforementioned aberrations and dominators.
mhm. One thing I guess that's kind of missing in here is part of her kit is also her static defense, and bio launchers is a huge boon that many Zagara players just don't want to deal with because it requires extra steps and complexity to pull off.
Oh yeah,
But
that's absolutely true.
uh,
That's absolutely true.
yeah, that's all I got for this.
In the defense of most Zagara players, most co-op maps are offensive oriented, and when you're pushing up rifts to core hall, the bio launchers that you use on the third set of shards cannot be used in the fourth set. So players kind of think of it as, well, you spend this much gas on structures that are basically only going to snipe one singular unit. It's kind of like Scourge, but a structure. And it doesn't die,
Mhm.
it just loses utility. Kind of, it's going to be a paperweight after it snipes off the void shard. I think that's what most people who don't use bio launchers feel about it. Of course, on maps like Oblivion Express, Void Launch, Temple of the Past, you can absolutely get a long utility out of your bio launchers as long as you protect them, you know. But yes, I get what you mean. Let's move on. The Brood is under attack.
So I'm glad this is mentioned. Just a few details I'd like to add to it is again, all her static defense doesn't contribute to her supply cap.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't cost supply. The only time it costs supply is the drone that's needed to make it. But you can pump out drones really quick with Zagara. You can get a huge spine spore bio launcher forest going
Forest.
in very quick, very quick work. Especially like if you want to camp an area, let's say you cleared all the way up on void launch, and yeah, you just make get overlords up there, have them poop creep and go crazy with your bio launchers, uh, spewing down right on top of the entrance of the shuttles.
Yeah.
That will pretty much, and that doesn't cost supply, so you still can allocate stuff toward corruptors, scourges, or etc. And it just adds more to your army.
Yeah.
And the other aspect is Zagara floats a lot of minerals, so
Might as
just
well spend
try
it.
to be
Yeah.
exactly.
Spend it on crawlers. That's pretty good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Isn't it crazy how many extra steps Zagara needs to do just for static defense? Compare Zagara to someone like Swan or Karax even. No, actually Swan. Swan just tells an SCV to spam static defense. It can even be a singular SCV if he's that cheap. He can just send it and queue up several structures, and they'll all build and they'll all attack. Whereas Zagara, first step, you have to get creep there. So either you use a hatchery, an overlord, or a creep tumor. That takes a while. And then, unlike Karax or other Protoss commanders, where the power field goes up right away as soon as the pylon finishes, you have to wait for the creep to generate. It's not enough that you have an overlord there or you have a hatchery there. You have to wait for the creep to actually allow the placement of your static defense. And then once your static defense is up, yes, you can uproot the spire or the spine and the spore crawlers, but the bio launchers are just there, and they cost gas, and there's no easy way for her to get health back for her static defense aside from maybe transfuse. But like Swan has repair, Karak has repair beam, and Swan has the fire suppression systems, whereas Zagara has manual transfuse, and that just adds to the manual targeting required for the bio launcher. It's a lot of work for, a fraction of what someone like Swan can do, don't you think?
Well, it's you're comparing two different commanders. Swan struggles with minerals. Zagara gets minerals like up the yin yang real quick. So there's a difference there. And the amount of workers that Zagara can pump out. So you equivalent that to like one SCV going around building things, whereas Zagara can make a whole gaggle of drones real
Oh
quick
my goodness.
and have them all starting
That reminded me
stuff.
That reminded me once again, you have to replace the drones and you have to build the drones if you don't want to use the ones you're already harvesting with, just to make your static defense. Whereas Swan, all the workers he used to build those static defense can just go right back to mining. That's 50 minerals for each one saved. Oh my goodness. But anyway, you're right. True. I see your point. I see your point that the mineral income for Karax, or the mineral, I guess the excess mineral income for Swan and Zagara are pretty different. So I can see your point there. All right, let's move on.
Something to note.
Yeah.
Synergy between, like, you talk about creep. If you have Stukov ally,
oh, that's gonna be later.
Arrogant ally.
The synergy section is gonna be later in this.
I know.
All right, let's move on. Oh, speaking of synergy, okay, Protoss commanders Artanis.
Yeah, I can't dispel that. Yeah, Artanis would be a good teammate for Zagara. Even if they're P3, if they're making good use of shield overcharge, like if your ally sees that you're about to roll a whole bunch of banelings into high Templar comp and puts shield overcharge on them, that's definitely good thinking on the allies' part.
Yeah.
It's kind of mostly one way, but I mean, if you really want to be helpful toward the Artanis ally, you make a few queens and transfuse some of his hurt bio stuff. So
that'll work.
But yeah,
another thing here is that. Oh wait, I would like to point out that the Where is that section? The Garden Shell correctly does not affect Banelings and Scourge. Here we go. Banelings and Scourge does not benefit from Garden Shell. So this is very, very important that the Wikia pointed this out, because for newer players coming in, they might think that Garden Shell with Banelings and Scourge just means free wins. It doesn't. It doesn't affect them. So unfortunately, that's not a thing. But good on the Wikia for pointing it out. Bad on the Wikia for saying Zagaras's. Look at this. Note that all Protoss commanders can use their Nexus's Chrono boost on Zagaras's. Minus points to you, Wikia. Anyway, I'm just kidding. Let's move on. Carax.
So I definitely agree. I'm glad they pointed out the Unity barrier, applying toward the Banelings and Scourges to give them a little toughness, which is a little more than since Guardian Shell doesn't apply to them. So that's definitely something. Allows them to get through initial damage, and all they need to do is connect. So one thing that kind of burns me is not necessarily a Zagara thing, but more of a Carax thing. It says Carax is normally weak against air without his orbital strikes, and no. Yeah, Carax, his anti-air is pretty good. Orbital strikes and solar lance is a very potent anti-air as long as you hit them.
In tandem, they're quite potent.
Yeah, don't rely solely on orbital strikes. Use your solar lance whenever you can. I see too many Carax players that only use orbital strikes.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, besides the point. On defense missions, Carax shores up Zag's relatively weak defense, but there's the saying, a good offense is better than a good defense many times.
Does Super Chrono affect Baneling Nest spawns?
No.
That's unfortunate.
No.
That's unfortunate. I feel like it should. I feel like it should. It's co-op. Come on. It should.
It would be very obvious if it did.
It should. I'm telling you now. It should.
Yeah.
I know it's not.
Should. That would be great synergy, but yeah.
That'd be amazing synergy. Also, one thing that I'm not sure if it's mentioned here, maybe I just skimmed through it a little too quickly, but when Zagara's on the 3rd prestige, and she goes out to a 4 corner of the map, and most other commanders can't get units to her, guess what Carax does? Pew 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 pew. Yeah. It's vision for Carax.
Yeah, looks at
That's synergy. I would call that great synergy. Maybe it's just me.
Yep.
Yeah, that's one thing that I would like.
Carax, and then there's someone else that also can do that too. So yep.
Yeah. Oh, she even. We'll talk about those later. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Vorazun.
I mean, yeah, Black Hole in combination with Banelings and Scourges. That's kind of a no-brainer.
The alley.
Time stop.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's
really good.
When everything's frozen, you don't have to worry about it killing your stuff. Depending, of course, certain mutators are exceptions, but Zagara has no cloak units. Does not benefit from at all from Vorazun's cloak bonuses, though. I keep in mind that all her ground stuff can burrow, so something to think about. If you have a Vorazun ally, and if Zag is about to bite the dust, burrow her.
Yeah, if you don't have a deep tunnel, just burrow her. That's gonna be pretty good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Burrow her, and if she gets killed, she's gonna teleport back to home base.
That's pretty good. Yes, that is pretty good. Yeah. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So time stop, and then just go to just Vorazun's crowd control and Zagara's splashiness work well in tandem. Let's move on.
Yep.
Alarak.
Yeah, I mean both these commanders are focused on heavy offense, so ascendants are good to focus down powerful enemy units. Zagaras are may have trouble with. The thing for Alarak is Ascendants take time to power up, so Zagara covers that early game, that early power, and helps keep things down so that Ascendants can power up. So yeah, kind of good synergies with that. Yeah, nothing more to say about it.
I would like to add that Ascendants, if you're using those, they can snipe stuff like Vipers, Hybrid Dominators, Siege Tanks, Reavers, Corsairs, stuff that would make Zagara's life a pain. And then, once those are gone, Zagara just rolls in, carefree, and just has the time of her life. Which I would say is one thing that they can... It's a teamwork. I wouldn't call it a synergy, per se, but it's definitely a teamwork. You make your life, you make your allies' life easier using your choices, not necessarily your commander. Although your commander does facilitate for that. Do you agree?
Teamwork in co-op, what a novel concept.
What a novel concept. Imagine working together toward a shared objective. Who does that in co-op? Let's move
Crazy.
on. Phoenix.
Yeah, kind of straightforward. Again, two offensively minded commanders. Something I would like to add onto this is, yeah, both commanders are very offensive oriented, but they do each has in their kits to something to make them a little more tanky. Zagara has her aberration upgrade that allows to protect the Zerglings, and you throw that on top of conservator fields. Wow.
Oh yeah. It's gonna be very hard.
Definitely add up.
Plus, you have Zergling Invasion too.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's pretty awesome.
So it's a good combination to tag team. And again, I'm glad they mentioned the frenzy. It's like, yeah, Phoenix's champions, especially if it was like T2 champions with frenzy. Wow.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing that I would like to add for Phoenix, as well as Carax and Artanis. Observers. Overseers suck. Observers are the way to go for detection. Definitely much better than Overseers. And also, Phoenix's Arbiter suit, once you get that upgrade, very nice detection for Zagara. Never have to waste your Overlords again on dying when you F2 in front. Right?
Yep. If you're having trouble with Zagara's Overseers F2ing them in front, just put one in siege mode at least before you start an engagement, so that way at least you have one to fall back on if you do lose your Overseers.
All right, let's move on. Zeratul.
I have a beef with the very first sentence. Zeratul is an excellent teammate for Zagara. Zeratul is an excellent teammate just on his own. It doesn't matter. So yeah.
Zeratul is an excellent carrier of Zagara.
Yeah, he carries pretty much any commander. So that the only commander he probably struggle carrying is super duper Gary.
Super duper Gary. Maybe Tychus to some extent.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah, Zagara. So the only thing about Zeratul, he does have a little time. You have to get his artifacts to ramp him up. Even on like P3, you still have to get like the 2 artifacts. And then Zagara, as soon as she gets her Baneling Nest, she's starting to go already. So she's a very good early game commander, so she can shore that up. Especially if it's like P2 Zeratul, it takes more time for him to ramp up, but he can cover the late game. Zagara will make sure the early games are solidified.
That's true. All right. I would just add that stuff like Void Suppression Crystal, the Tesseract Monolith's pretty good for studying things that Zagara has to get to. The Demote Dude, pretty good at making sure that the stuff turned into things that Zagara, for example, if you have a Corsair, the Artifact of Essence, the Demote Dude can make that not a thing, or at least something that Zagara is going to be good at fighting. And also, Observers, the Watchers, very good detection. Never have to build an Overseer again. Or Cannons. Cannons also detection. Pretty good. Lots of different ways Zeratul can make Zagara's life better, right?
Yes, yes. I mean, the Zelnaga Watchers are the best form of overseer of all the Protoss. So yeah.
Yes, best of all the pros. Yeah, that's true. Best detection of Protoss in this game. Well, let's move on. Terran commanders.
I wouldn't say Raynor is a questionable choice for a teammate of Zagara. His ability to we talked about Phoenix being able to reduce damage. Raynor can also reduce damage too with his medics. If they're healing something, uh, it's they're healing in a small area and it's applying damage reduction too. So it could buy your Banelings just that little extra bit so they can make a connection. It's something. And something to add about Raynor, if like we talked about P3 Zagara, if they're going into the back line and they're trying to snipe an objective, Raynor can go with her because he has drop pods. So if she goes in someplace remote, Raynor can start raining men down on Zagara's position and support where she's going.
Yeah. Something I'd like to add on here is I mentioned that Alarak has an option to team to cooperate or team up well with Zagara. Raynor also has a great chance to do that. As I mentioned earlier, Alarak can do Ascendant Mind Blasts on splash damage units. Raynor kind of naturally wants to do that on his own. When you use Hyperion, you typically want to use to clear stuff like Siege Tanks, Reavers, High Templar, Vipers, Infestors. Those units that Raynor's bio is weak to are the same units that Zagara's Zerg are weak to. So when you eliminate threats to your army as Raynor, you also eliminate threats to Zagara's army, which will be very good when both of your armies take the field. I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very great point. I mean, a lot of us who play Raynor like to associate Raynor as the most zergy of the Terran commanders, other than Inhumane Minx. But yeah, his ability to replenish his army is kind of reminiscent of Zagara. Not as effective, not as simple as Zagara's, but it can be like to that point.
So maybe I would rephrase this as if you're like in the 1% of Raynor players, like the Lila level, like the 2-2 level, if you play Raynor the way he's supposed to be played at the higher levels, meaning you snipe the splash damage units, Raynor can be a pretty decent to even good teammate of Zagara. Not necessarily synergistically, but by the actions you take while playing as Raynor, you'll be very helpful to Zagara. Anyway, that's about it. Let's move on. Swan.
Yeah, Swan is a good choice of teammates. Kind of like how we were mentioning before. Zagara, if she deep tunnels to a remote place and Carrax can look at and support her, no problem. Rain down space lasers. Swan, you got vision. Laser drill
Laser
can
will get
hit it.
Yes, that's true. What else?
That's another one. Swarmlings can occupy enemy ground forces. Yeah, Swarmlings are really good at tying up ground forces as long as you can. They can last maybe longer than a couple seconds. So yeah, a few points in evasion helps them to last a little longer, and yeah, keep. But the other aspect is you gotta figure out what kind of strategy your Swan ally is going with.
Yeah.
He may not have any ground. He may have floating factories. He may have wraiths.
That's true. That's true.
But either way, it's good to have ground forces occupying because most, if you need to hold an attack wave or if you need to defend something, yeah, having some ground forces is necessary. And what else are you gonna do with all those minerals that Zagara is gonna be floating?
That's true. All right, let's move on. Nova.
Yeah. saying that Nova doesn't have great synergy with Zagara, I heavily disagree. Putting down a defensive drone at like a attack position can help make sure your banelings or scourges connect.
Or even
And
Zagara
the other
P3,
aspect,
right? Even Zagara P3 with a defensive drone. Oh my goodness.
exactly. And then the other aspect is Griffin airlift. If you really wanted to like do some damage in a funny way to an objective, is you just sit at base. Zagara is going to just be banking up a whole bunch of banelings and scourges, and you get vision of whatever you need to kill, and Griffin airlift them right on top of it.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. Also, same thing I said with the Protoss commanders. Detection! Oh my goodness! Detection with Nova. Right?
Some of the best detection. She has some of the best detection in the game.
Detection! That's insane. That's I think pretty much it. Also, while Nova is pretty good cleaning up ground units, when Nova pushes out alone and she doesn't have a lot of liberators yet, she might take a bit of time clearing buildings. And you know what units are pretty good at clearing buildings? Zerglings. You just run them in.
Banelings and yes.
Oh, Banelings might be kind of expensive to use on buildings, but Zerglings definitely are not. That's what I would say. Yeah. So that's I think another point of synergy for them. Anyway.
Yeah, they're good complements to each other. So not great synergy with Zagara. I heavily disagree with that.
Yeah. Let's continue. Han and Horner.
Yeah. Zagara, Han and Horner and Zara cover a lot of the same roles. Heavily disagree. I'd say they're very different commanders. You can play Han and Horner like Zagara, and you will be very bad at it. I mean, if you're that Reapers are like banelings with guns, that's definitely not how it is. Yes, they do complement each other pretty well. Han and Hoarder salvage Zagara is wow.
It's really, pretty huge. It really helps. The salvage is huge for Zagara. What else?
In fact, she's probably one of the few commanders that actually makes really good of Han and Hoarder salvage. Yeah.
Okay.
Both have armies designed to be lost and rebuilt. Not necessarily. He does go on further that the Horny units are more of the army that does
the backbone. Yeah.
The backbone of it. But yeah, you shouldn't be playing Han and Horner assuming that you're going to be losing stuff like how Zagara does. Definitely
kind of. Yeah, kind of. Also, if you use Hellions, that could kind of work with the fear thing. I think Hellbats, not Hellions, Hellbats. The Hellions have the oil thing, which will slow down the enemy, and the Hellbats have the exploding thing, which will kind of make them afraid. That's going to play into Banelings for Zagara and help her stuff survive. So yes, let's move on. Haikus. Oh, sorry?
I just want to add. Yeah? I just wanted to add, the Hellions, when they explode, it's a stim to attack speed and movement speed. So
that's very good for Zagara.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very good for Zagara.
Okay, moving on.
Tychus.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. That Tychus and Zagara have completely opposite design philosophies behind their units. So both are really powerful. Zagara is more straightforward. Tychus, you do have to. There's a lot more finesse in it.
Kind of.
But yeah, both are really strong early game. The only thing is, Zagara kind of falls off after mid game.
Yeah.
Tychus gets stronger. He just gets stronger the more war gear that he accumulates. So as long as he has the income to do it, he get much stronger than Zagara can. But again, if you can't solidify early game, then you can't get to late game. So.
That's true. Okay, and Arcturus, no report yet. So what do we say for Arcturus?
Zagara combines. Arcturus takes a little time to get off the ground. Even with P3, you still have to set up your economy, whereas Zagara's economy, especially with the Baneling Nest, that it starts going. But once they can get going, yeah,
It really
they
gets
can
going.
both be inhumane. They can be both inhumane together.
Inhumane. That is so inhumane. What else?
In some sense, they're kind of somewhat similar. They can be inhumane. They have artillery structures, ESOs,
That's a good point.
and then bio launchers are not as good as ESOs, but it still can hit pretty far. So
It's pretty
yeah,
far.
They do complement you. And the other aspect, if you're not playing P3, having intercessors, they can heal your Scourge, can heal Banelings, and help them get to their intended destinations without popping too early.
Yeah. Also, Contaminated Strike can't confuse enemies long enough for your Banelings and Scourge to connect. So that's another thing.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Let's go to Zerg Commanders. Kerrigan.
So I see this as two different philosophies in terms of how you play Zerg Commander. Saying that Kerrigan's Mutalists and Ultralists are generally superior to Corruptors and Aberrations. I'd say both fill different roles. Aberrations, you can get those guys out in at the 3:30 mark.
It's very
you
early.
ain't getting Ultralist. Yeah, you ain't getting Ultralist out by then. So, whereas Kerrigan, she definitely outpaces. If it's not P1, she outpaces Zag in terms of mobility without question with her Omega Worms. So it's just different play styles. I wouldn't say Kerrigan is a better Zagara at all. It's no ways Kerrigan can match Zagara's early game economy.
Huh.
Yeah, saying that Kerrigan is better.
It's not a competition, though. It's co-op. We're supposed to say how they complement each other and synergize, not how they compete.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
And then Zagara has Banelings. Kerrigan doesn't have Banelings. She doesn't have Scourges. And think about it. Banelings are like the bread and butter for Zerg. Scourge was removed, or they removed it in going between StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2 because of just how potent Scourge are.
Yeah,
and
very potent.
Yeah, and Zagara is the only one that has it. So.
Yeah, kind of. I was thinking more when I saw Kerrigan. I already thought, Assimilation Aura, Omega Orbs. Those are pretty good synergies for pretty much anyone. Yet they're hardly mentioned.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Exactly.
Like Zagara loves Assimilation Aura. She gets more money. She gets to use her Bailings and more gas. Who doesn't? Why was it not mentioned? The Omega Worms. When I play as Kerrigan and I get a Zagara ally, I put an Omega Worm right beside my Zagara ally's Bailing Nest. And I tell them, hey ally, rally your Bailing Nest to this worm so that you can pop them out in the wild. It's especially useful for maps like...
the Bailing Nest, right next to our hatcheries.
It's especially useful for maps like Missed Opportunities and especially Mal Warfare. My goodness. Also Donny Vermilion. Very helpful in Donny Vermilion. Omega Worms are immensely helpful.
Creep.
Right? That helps out everyone.
Spreading creep. They're making detection. If you have a Kerrigan ally who's like going buck wild with the Omega Worms, you don't need to make any overseers.
Exactly. And Immobilization Wave, whatever it doesn't destroy, is severely weakened. You can push it and finish it off. It's a pretty good synergy, I would say. Right?
Yeah. pop a Omega Worm, and if the Zagara ally has all their banelings loaded into it, it's like, oh, unload Omega Worm. Have fun, banelings.
Yeah,
Have fun, Amon.
exactly. So it's not a competition like this section seems to suggest. It's not a comparison of who's strong, whose users are stronger and weaker. It's about how they complement and support each other. Oh my goodness! Come on, guy who wrote this. Let's move on. Abathur.
Abathur has some synergy. Again, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not a competition. It's how they complement each other, how they can work together. And Abathur, he has a strong early game if he gets his ultimate evolution out. So there's some mutators that might prevent that, and Zagara, with her hyper strong early game, she can help produce a lot of biomass for Abathur to get that one Brutalist up. It is good to allow your Abathur ally to try to kill things with Toxic Nest, because it produces more biomass.
More biomass.
But try watch where your Abathur ally is trying to lure their Toxic Nest. If there's a bunch of camps that are away from his Toxic Nest that he's not even thinking about luring, go after that and produce a bunch of biomass for him. You don't have to just sit back and banking up things. It's just produce biomass for him, and that way, once he gets his first ultimate evolution, then he'll start contributing, and you're just gonna help power him up. It does say that he is a juggernaut with units that can screen for Zagara's cheap or fragile army. That is very true. Help him out to get to that point, and just try not to interfere with his biomass farming if he's doing that.
True. Aside from all that you guys mentioned, there are two more things I'd like to bring out. First is Vipers. Vipers are going to make Zagara's units a whole lot more viable. If you can disable and cloud the siege tanks, pull spellcasters into the army, that's going to be huge for Zagara, so that her units will be more cost effective against Amon stuff. That's number one. The second one, Zagara herself, when you're using Apex Predator, you can follow her Brutalisks. We talked about Zagara herself being half a Brutalisk. Well, Abathur is 3 more. You know what's better than 3 Brutalisks? 3.5. When Abathur pushes in with Brutalisks in the corner, Zagara's like, haha, I can do that too. And you know what? Sometimes
and I got hunter killers with me.
Yeah, right, hunter killers. And sometimes Bailingness can actually steal kills from Brutalisk, which means she's effective in her own right. The only reason we called her half a Brutalisk is not because she's half as strong. It's because her cooldown is twice as long. So she can be just as effective as a Brutalisk's out. She just takes a bit longer to teleport in and out. But she can just do that playstyle alongside Abathur just fine. She'll be just fine doing that, right?
She doesn't have to farm for it either. She
Exactly. She just waits for
spawns.
Abathur to have these Brutalisks. And then they can go party together. Alright. I believe that's all. Oh wait, one more thing. Zagara's cheap units. Abathur has free units when he goes for swarm hosts, so they can kind of just, once Zagara and the Brutalisks get them through the early game, the swarm hosts can really settle them in for a longer one if such a case is required. For example, on maps like Minor Evac or Dead of Night, if Zagara can't clear it in the first 3 nights, she'll have a lot of trouble staying alive. Abathur is one of those that gets stronger as time goes on because of the biomass mechanic, even more so than guys like Arcturus, like Tychus. Abathur just gets stronger over time because of how biomass works. The only 2 guys I can think of who do get stronger over time, like Abathur, are Dahaka and Zeratul with the 2nd prestige. So yeah, he's one of those 3 guys. Anything else to add?
No, that covers it pretty well, I think.
All right, let's move on. Stukov.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised that this section is a little longer than the others.
I split it into
Usually,
not one,
if people,
not two, but 3 paragraphs. Oh my goodness.
yeah, usually if you're a fan of Zagara, you're gonna be a fan of Stukov just due to their simplistic play styles. Saying that Stukov and Zagara fill many of the same roles, I don't know about that. It yeah, you can make them fill the same roles. I can also make Raynor fill somewhat of a similar role as Stukov if I wanted to. But yeah,
That's inhumane.
yeah. I mean, it depends upon what you say as a role. If the role is just finishing the game and winning the mission, then okay. I do like the fact that
Times like these are when I want Zeus to be editing this video and just have him like put a bread roll when you say fill his role. Anyway, please continue. Pretend I didn't say anything.
all right. I do like the fact that the second paragraph mentions that Sukov's mass numbers can block banelings reaching their targets. Yeah, it's definitely you'd be fighting for ground space and making sure traffic flows appropriately. In the case of having a Stukov ally, it's better if you kind of just divide and conquer and go after things that where the psi emitter isn't, so you don't deal with traffic issues.
Or just have the Stukov play Diamondbacks. Right?
Yeah.
Slime Trail
Exactly.
synergize very well with Zagara. Right?
Oh yeah. Drag everything to the ground, and therefore banelings can hit it. You don't have to invest in Scourge.
And then when
definitely
when stuff like Zealots chase the Diamondbacks, they walk into a slime trail and it gets surrounded right away by Zerglings. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have to be all bad. Like when you're Stukov, you don't when you're Stukov and you have a Zagara ally, you don't have to go into that bunker style. They can play Diamondbacks. It'll work pretty well. Right? Plus your giant monsters. Apocalypse can tank a lot of the shots to clear up the way for the banelings. Same with the Alexander. You can mind control the Vipers. Make them not a problem for Zagara. It's great synergy, I'm telling you.
And they're free units.
Free units.
So if Zagara had to push into a base, she has to dedicate resources to it, or her. I mean, she does get free banelings, but not that many. Where Alexander going into a base, that's like a free base wipe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, infested battle cruiser. So yeah, saying that they fulfill the same roles, no, they can definitely complement each other. And
Zagara can provide vision when she's going for Apex Predator. She can provide vision for the top bars of Stukov, which is incredible. That's huge.
And then we were mentioning before her static defense. Stukov spreads creep all over the place for free.
For free.
Oh,
Stukov's one of the best allies for Zagara.
Build wherever you want. So that's a very different role than what Zagara is doing, but yeah.
Plus,
it's a good compliment.
Plus, if the Stukov is going for bunkers, you know what it doesn't need? The expansion gases. You know who needs them? Zagara! Just take
And who else is going to be making macro hatcheries that can make... Who wouldn't mind making macro hatcheries next to each gas?
Yeah!
Zagara.
Thick girl. She can just spam even more Bailey's Scourge. It's a win-win situation. What?
Yep.
They're a great synergy. Oh my goodness. Still.
In all fairness, this doesn't seem like he's saying that it's a bad synergy, but saying they fill the same roles, yeah. It's I do not agree with that.
I guess in only a broad stroke, not the same role, but their army looks kind of...
They look Zerg. They both look like Zerg.
They're
both the same role.
I'm trying to see it from this guy's point of view. I think they look similar on the minimap. That's what it is. They look similar on the minimap. A long line of dots from the base to the enemy base. That's how they look. That's how they're like a long line of dots from the base to the enemy base. There we go. Let's move on.
Yikes.
Dhaka.
So Dahaka and Zagara having moderate synergy. I don't know about that. I mean, Dahaka can definitely have synergy, especially when he's doing his eat, and if you're doing like P1 Dahaka, that that in itself is just synergy haven
Great
right
buff.
there.
Yeah.
Uh, Whereas, yeah, Frenzy is a massive boon to Dahaka, so yeah, it as long as not P3 and not P1. So I both are good at killing. Um, both have good pushing power. Zagara has her banelings. Dahaka has best girl Glevig. No.
Okay. I would like to add that Zagara Deep Tunnel can give vision for pack leaders, which is very helpful for when you want to snipe far objectives right away. It's pretty good. Also, you almost brought it up, but Zagara's banelings, Dahaka Sky banelings, and that's pretty good. Can you imagine being in A1's base and you have banelings from the sky and banelings on the ground all coming in? It's all banelings.
Yes.
That's and both of them generate banelings for free. That's pretty good. You can just bombard an area with free units, basically. That's pretty good, right? And yeah,
Unhindered. And
exactly.
also, if you really want to add insult to injury, build some bio launchers right on top of where Dahaka has his primal creep or his creeper host.
There you go. If you really want to, I wouldn't recommend it, but you can. All right. That's about it, though. I wouldn't say moderate. Maybe kind of good synergy. Let's move on. Stetman.
I think this person just is not familiar with how Stetman works. Stetman has somewhat decent synergy with Zagara. No, he has great synergy with Zagara. I mean, in fact, he kind of plays like Zagara in a different form. I mean, you could play Stetman like Zagara if you really wanted to. Stetman can use juiced up payload. What? I have no idea what that means.
The purple zone overcharge. Purple zone overcharge.
Yeah, which doesn't.
It speeds up energy regen. He's saying
covers Zagara's lack of early game anti-air.
He's saying that he wants Zagara to have more energy for hunter killers.
Don't do that. Just make yourself a mecha infestor and tentacle Zagara. She'll be happy like beyond belief. Setman set zones are a nice help to Zagara. Yes. They help accelerate to supersonic speeds if on creep as well.
I'd rather have the
definitely
green zone overcharge. It seems really good.
Yeah, because green, especially if it's overcharged, it almost ensures that you're going to connect with your banelings.
Yes, all very nicely. Another thing is, what was I going to say? I had it earlier. Oh, detection. Yeah, detection. Super Gary detection. That's really awesome for Zagara.
I like Nova.
Right? Like
Pretty
Nova.
much like Nova.
But tankier. And in the air.
Much.
So, you can also... yeah?
I get... Yeah, go on. I'll add on after.
You can also add Ultralisks, which are great at absorbing anything that might otherwise destroy Zagara's banelings. So you run it with the Ultralisks, and then once they absorb a couple shots, run the banelings and Zerglings in to creep the rest. That's really good, right?
Yep. Yeah. I was about to say, so it feels like his lack of information on Manx, and then just this
snippet.
snippet on Stetman
This
is
blurb.
just lacking. I feel that this wiki was made a long while ago. I mean, Zagara is a very straightforward commander, so I mean, not much is gonna change with her
Yeah.
over time
I
as
mean,
people get used to her. So
it's been mostly good, I think. There are of
yeah,
course a couple issues on, you know, more recent strategies and more recent prestiges, but it's been mostly good, I think.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think it was a little old since Stetman and Manx were the last two commanders, so
Yeah.
they're kind of a little lacking.
I think it's also the last slide. So yeah, my overall assessment of this is the facts definitely right. See the benefit of adding facts in, like objective
Mm-hmm.
fact. They just copy paste from the game. They add points. They add points to your credence. So even if you make a couple of mistakes later on, you can point and say, "Hey, I said that right. Yeah, you did. You did say that right." So, with all things mentioned, I mean, even regarding the strategies of just choosing which masteries, the prestige strategies, a lot of the synergies, a lot of the strategies, they're mostly spot on. There's just a few ones that could have been more fleshed out, I think. Right?
Oh yeah, this one's a lot better than the Swan wiki.
Swan one, yeah. This one I think needs a complete rewrite. This one just needs a refreshing and update on the Arcturus and the later commanders. And also, please update the one with Kerrigan and Stukov. Those guys have incredible synergy with Zagara. Those are the only two egregious ones. Stetboy yeah, kind of a bigger synergy than what is given credit for. But I think the most egregious ones are Kerrigan and Stukov. But yes, anything else you'd like to add? This is the last slide, I believe. So no more after this.
Again, straightforward commander, shouldn't be too much wrong. If you manage to get her like really wrong, just as like like how things went wrong with Swan, then I don't know what to say.
All right. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. If you have an idea for what else to do, please leave that in the comment. I will see you guys next time.